Welcome back to the Retrospective, where I'm reviewing every WWE pay-per-view from 2001 onwards. Alongside these yearly reviews, don't forget to check out my classic match rating shorts, where I've rated every single match from every single WWE pay-per-view. After a memorable 2006, WWE entered into 2007 with plenty of momentum. This year brought us incredibly rivalries, moments of some major changes that shaped the company's future. From Batista and Randy Orton producing one of the defining rivalries of the decade, to Edge cementing himself as one of WWE's top stars, John Cena suffering a career-altering injury, and Chris Jericho making his long-awaited return, there was never a shortage of talking points throughout the year. So, was 2007 able to build a successful year upon 2006? Let's find out as we take a look back at every WWE pay-per-view from 2007. So the year started off with New Year's Revolution, where Johnny Nitro and Jeff Hardy had good chemistry in the ring fighting over the Intercontinental Championship. Kenny Dykstra got a big win, but did absolutely nothing with it over Ric Flair. And the DQ in the tag match for me is hilarious. Triple H got hurt and tore his quad into the final parts of the match, and Shawn Michaels goes absolutely crazy, taking out Edge and Randy Orton with steel chair shots that look absolutely brutal, of which then Triple H and Shawn just put them through the announce tables, and that is that. Carlito is an underrated wrestler within this time. He's been having great matches consistently, but by the end of the year, he's kind of disappeared a little bit. And John Cena versus Umaga was a decent match, but they would have a better match at the Royal Rumble. Speaking of, we move on to the Royal Rumble. It was a great pay-per-view overall, very fun to watch. Test looks absolutely ridiculous going after the ECW Championship, but then walking out of the match with it going to count out. It led me questioning why on earth you would even do that. For me, one of the build-up to Mr. Kennedy and Batista for the World Championship was that Mr. Kennedy won the Beat the Clock Challenge. Now, the Beat the Clock Challenge is something I would love to bring back into WWE nowadays, as kind of winning matches quickly is something we see very often with short match times, but also something that people like Javon Evans, Bron Breakker could really invest time into, and there could be really fun ways to make them number one contenders for championships. There was a great last man standing match between John Cena and Umaga, probably one of the better matches of that year. And the Royal Rumble was absolutely brilliant. It was a top 3 Rumble in my opinion. And yeah, great last call from Michael Cole when Great Khali is stood in the ring by himself. Well, not by himself. He stood in the ring with everybody else laid out all around him as he came out at number 29. Michael Cole says, "Is there anyone who can eliminate this guy?" And then number 30 hits, and it's The Undertaker, and it's this awesome moment. And yeah, for me, this is one of my favourite Royal Rumble matches of all time. Moving on now to No Way Out, and yeah, it was a bang average pay-per-view. Matches were okay at best, apart from the Mania main event tag team match between Undertaker and Batista versus Shawn Michaels and John Cena. All of them had really good chemistry between them, but of course we know that Shawn Michaels and Undertaker are going to have great chemistry with the amount they've wrestled. Batista and John Cena had good chemistry as well. And yeah, it was a good finish having Batista showing and kind of improving the build for him versus The Undertaker by kind of taking him out to cost them the match, which, you want to get that win, but when it comes to The Undertaker, you really want to show that dominance over him, which made a lot of sense in the build to No Way Out. At WrestleMania 23, there was a fantastic Money in the Bank ladder match with a great field. Very unlucky for Mr. Kennedy that he won this Money in the Bank match, but it wouldn't actually result in anything. Batista versus The Undertaker was a very good match, but very weird that it was literally bang in the middle of the card. John Cena versus Shawn Michaels was a brilliant match, 9 out of 10 in my opinion. And yeah, the rest of the card was alright. There's some decent matches, and it was an okay WrestleMania overall. Not one of the ones that stands out the most, but it was a very enjoyable watch nonetheless. Backlash went on to have the brand joint, and I don't know how to put it, the two brands come together from this point onwards to have pay-per-views all as one, which is good. I feel like it really benefits SmackDown in particular, because I feel like they were really struggling with brand-only pay-per-views. So we see the start of Do-Rag McMahon. And he was an absolute menace. The 3-on-1 handicap where Bobby Lashley has to take on Umaga and both Shane and Mr. McMahon is ridiculous. But Vince McMahon winning the ECW Championship, is incredibly questionable. Like, already the ECW Championship was tarnished, but having McMahon win it is just absolutely ridiculous. Taker vs Batista was a great last man standing match, probably one of the better last man standing matches we've seen. But the main event, the Fatal 4-Way match between Shawn Michaels, Randy Orton, Edge and John Cena was absolutely brilliant. One of the best 4-ways of this time. And yeah, just an awesome final sequence with John Cena, of course, falling onto Randy Orton to retain his championship. I thought worked really, really well here. Going on to Judgment Day, Edge defeating Mr. Kennedy and cashes in Money in the Bank all in the same week, just before Judgment Day, to become the new world champion was a good call for Edge's career. Turns out Mr. Kennedy wasn't as injured as they thought he was, so therefore he could have quite easily done this and been world champion, and it was a good way to write Undertaker off TV for a few months. Now, we see Randy Orton starting to use the punt kick as well as it writes off Shawn Michaels on this pay-per-view. The attempted switching music from Shawn Michaels, where he just collapses like halfway through, it did make me chuckle a little bit. And yeah, so it was Randy Orton and Shawn Michaels face each other multiple times in this year, and they just don't seem to click as much as you would think that Randy Orton and Shawn Michaels should. Batista versus Edge is good. I expected it to be better. MVP beating Chris Benoit 2-0 is a very big surprise. But not only that, but John Cena tapping out the Great Khali is more of a surprise, because you would have never thought that was going to happen. And yeah, I would have never have guessed. I think watching back then, if I can remember correctly, but I was very young, like the Great Khali tapping out, let alone losing, seemed impossible. So yeah, very big moment for John Cena, but I'm not sure if it was massively necessary. I think it didn't hurt Khali as much as it probably should have, but yeah, for him to tap out was pretty massive. Going on to One Night Stand, Hardys versus Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin was a really good ladder match. Shelton Benjamin was throwing himself around throughout the match. Mark Henry wins a match. He beats Kane with like the most boring submission in any of the submissions with a bear hug. It wasn't an awful match. It was pretty good, but it was a really boring finish, is what I'm trying to say. Another question about this pay-per-view is, what is a pudding match? And why is it on a pay-per-view? But moving on from that, we also have Khali's best match, in my opinion. Now, he had a triple threat match with Rey Mysterio and Batista that's pretty good, and his triple threat with Kane and Batista as well. But Khali versus John Cena in the Falls Count Anywhere match is probably my favourite Great Khali match, which I know is not like saying the most, but I really enjoyed this match. I remember watching it when I was younger as well, enjoying it. So yeah, I feel like this is probably the best match he had in his entire career, in my opinion. Then we move on to Vengeance Night of Champions. And I mean, to get out of the way first, the whole Benoit thing happens. I'm not going to say much about it before this pay-per-view. It's just, I mean, it is part of WWE history, which is what this series is all about. But yeah, moving swiftly on. Oh, no, wait. No, because before that, of course, we see the McMahon limo explosion, which we then have to abandon straight away. So that kind of is what it is. But most of these matches were pretty under average on this show, which is a bit of a shame. And yeah, there was DQs as well, which weren't great. The Tag Title Open Challenge could have been a really good idea, depending on who answered it. But then Sergeant Slaughter and another legend, I can't remember who it was now. But having two legends have this shot instead, I thought was really silly and didn't really need to happen. We had Batista lose a last chance match against Edge by count out, as in he didn't get in the ring quick enough. I knew that was the result and still kind of lost my shit a little bit when it happened. I was very unhappy with this decision. And also, Edge gets hurt not long after this. You would have just had Batista win. I know you can't anticipate injuries, but man, this was so annoying. Candice Michelle, with probably the biggest shock of the year, winning the Women's Championship. And yeah, we had a 5-match challenge, which was a fun match overall, but a very random assortment of people. You know, with it being Cena, Lashley, Mick Foley, Randy Orton, and King Booker. Yeah, very random Like, I can't imagine how that came together on TV. But yes, it was a fun match. It was probably the better match of the night. But yeah, it just like I would have wanted something else out of John Cena defending the championship. Moving on to Great American Bash. Just before Edge gets hurt, as I said, he vacates the title, and the Great Khali, of all people, wins the World Championship. Couldn't have been Kane, couldn't have been Batista. No, it was bloody the Great Khali, which I'm just not great about. Talking about surprising championship wins, Hornswoggle wins the Cruiserweight Championship, which is just laughable. And in a few months after this, they just retire the championship, which kind of makes sense in a kind of way. Johnny Nitro is now John Morrison. They made the transition on ECW after he became champion. Umaga and Jeff Hardy have great chemistry in the ring. They had a really good match for the Intercontinental Championship. I actually really enjoyed Khali versus Batista versus Kane more than I should have. I found myself getting more invested in it the more I watched it, even though, again, I knew the result. But I like reinvesting in matches even if I do know the result. And finally, in the main event, Bobby Lashley and John Cena had a kind of dream match for that time, as these two hadn't met one-on-one before, and it's a bit of a forgotten classic. It's actually a really good match, and kind of surprised me with how good it was, because people barely talk about these two ever going one-on-one. Moving on to SummerSlam, and this might be one of the worst SummerSlams ever. It was a good return for Triple H, and he had a decent match with King Booker. Rey Mysterio returned as well and had an okay match with Chavo. Khali is a nuisance as World Heavyweight Champion, and yeah, it's just, in a way of like, he just shouldn't be champion, and yet every time he defends it, he tends to get a win, which is really annoying. Glad that the John Cena versus Randy Orton feud has started, because it's a massive feud in the annals of WWE history, but no matches really stand out for me. So I'm interested going back and watching these again to see which ones are better than others. The match at SummerSlam was okay at best, though, so not the greatest start for Cena versus Orton. Going on to Unforgiven, Undertaker also returns from his injury earlier in the year. CM Punk won the ECW World Championship on TV, and Matt Hardy and MVP are rivals, yet are tag team champions here in that typical WWE trope of making rivals tag team champions. Khali versus Rey versus Batista is probably the best match on this show, which kind of tells you a lot about how this show really is. Cena versus Orton being a DQ finish in 7 minutes is not great at all. The main event of Mark Henry versus Undertaker is an okay match at best and probably shouldn't have been main event, but I get it with the return of The Undertaker and it being a big thing for WWE. But yeah, nothing on this show really delivered that much other than the triple threat match, which only minorly delivered. But yeah, to say that Great Khali had the best match on this show is incredibly ridiculous and shows, again, just how, like, everything on this show went about. Going on to No Mercy, the infamous night where the WWE Championship was defended 3 times. It was a cool story throughout the pay-per-view, though, definitely unique. Speaking of unique, we get the second edition of the Punjabi Prison match, and they are 2 for 2 in crap matches. Overall, it was a pretty bad pay-per-view. Triple H has 3 average matches, which kind of makes sense because he's trying to preserve energy throughout the matches so then he could do 3 matches. So yeah, just not great. Randy Orton being a shithouse heel, winning the WWE Championship back at the last match after being awarded it in the first segment. Kind of makes perfect sense for a heel Randy Orton. Going on to Cyber Sunday, and who would have thought The Miz would main event WrestleMania out of him and CM Punk, who faced each other in one of their first matches on this show. I'm pretty sure no one would have. The teasers for the return of Chris Jericho as Y2J continue. The rivalry is renewed between Batista and the Undertaker. The unnecessary special guest referee was fine. I would have preferred maybe another stipulation, but Undertaker vs Batista was by far the best match on this pay-per-view. Probably one of the better matches of 2007. These two absolutely cooked during their match on this show. And yeah, just absolutely fantastic. I'd probably say, if not the best match before SummerSlam. Like, I'd probably say the best match up to that point was probably on Backlash, where it was either their Last Man Standing match or the Fatal 4-Way match. But yeah, this was absolutely fantastic. I'd definitely go and suggest checking it out if you've got time. Going on to Survivor Series, we have a 10 Diva Tag match. where the best wrestlers in this match are pretty much Mickie James, Melina, and Beth Phoenix. They're clearly the best in the division at this point, but it's only one fall to a finish. Even though Survivor Series is famous for 10-man tags and doing it as an elimination, they just decided, no, the Divas will just do a single fall and that is it. We see the infamous American Nightmare, yet not at this point the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, make his pay-per-view debut. Randy Orton versus Shawn Michaels is good, but just something doesn't click throughout this one and they just have an okay match. Batista versus Undertaker, like away from the screwy finish, is a decent Hell in a Cell match. Both have had better matches against each other, but yeah, by far the best feud of the decade by this point. It is absolutely fantastic. Okay, and finally, going on to Armageddon, we see the return of Chris Jericho on Raw before that as he targets Randy Orton, and we start the year-long build to Jeff Hardy becoming the fan favourite in WWE. But it was he got a shock win over Triple H, which was a good start to his build up the card. Not a lot of quality wrestling on this show. There were some okay matches here and there. Very surprised that Finlay beat the Great Khali. I know he cheated and all that stuff, but yeah, I wouldn't have thought going into the show that Finlay was going to get the win here. And then in the main event, it wasn't the main event. Then we get the WWE title match where Randy Orton faces the returning Chris Jericho. It was absolutely fine, but we do see the return of JBL to active competition, where he cost Chris Jericho the match because of things that don't matter, essentially. It's really silly, the reason JBL gets involved here, but yeah, not a fan of that. And then, yeah, I wanted more out of the main event of this match. We saw The Undertaker, Edge, and Batista have a triple threat match for the World Championship. But it's low-key just Batista versus The Undertaker, and then Edge is just there at times. He breaks up pins. He doesn't really do a lot. And then he steals it right at the end, which, again, is very, the ultimate opportunist. He gets the Edge heads to come out, and they all look like Edge, so everyone's all confused. But, yeah, just not a great main event in a match that on paper looks like it could be an absolute banger. But yes, it was an okay way to end the year. I just expected a little bit more wrestling quality in the final match in the final pay-per-view of 2007. Overall, I thought 2007 was another enjoyable year for WWE. While I don't think the in-ring quality quite reached the heights of the roster was capable of, some of the storytelling, rivalries, and memorable moments made this a very entertaining year to watch. For me, my superstar of the year has to be Batista. His rivalry with The Undertaker was one of the defining feuds of the Ruthless Aggression era, and is consistently delivered throughout the entire year. My breakout star of the year is MVP. From arriving in late 2006 to becoming one of SmackDown's most reliable performers in 2007, he really established himself as a future star. With that said though, there was plenty of names who deserve recognition. CM Punk continued to grow in ECW, Randy Orton found himself back at the top of the mountain of WWE champion, and both Matt and Jeff Hardy had fantastic years, with Jeff in particular beginning his rise that would make him soon one of WWE's biggest fan favourites. As always, thank you for watching this episode of The Retrospective. Don't forget to check out my classic match rating shorts, and yeah, next time we move on to 2008, and we'll see whether WWE continue its momentum, and we'll see you then.